Welcome to the Day 2 podcast. Today we're going to talk about Amazon going shopping. Again, Shannon, we have a lot of followers who are sellers, who are growing their business, who are heads down, trying to survive and thrive in this jungle on Amazon. But I know back when I was a seller with my blinders on, trying to make the business go, it was good to sort of go up to the 40,000 foot view, take a look around and see on the macro level what's going on. And there was some big news that recently dropped. Actually, two acquisitions that Amazon recently announced. One is the iRobot company that has the product named Roomba. They acquired that for an ungodly amount of money, $1.65 billion. And then previous to that, just the week prior, they announced the acquisition of OneMedical, a primary care, very cool primary care company. OneMedical, which is sort of an upgrade from an urgent care, very cool, clean Silicon Valley company. And so they are out shopping. And we like to pull back or pull up, I should say, up to the 40,000 foot view and see what does this mean for seller. Today with me is Shannon Roddy, Amazon strategist, educator, all-around great guy. Shannon, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Finally getting better. I feel like my health is coming back and I'm finally able to get out of bed and come to life again. So
you need to go to OneMedical, Shannon.
I don't think I
see
do,
if they
Jason.
can get you the right.
I don't know if I want to give them all my medical information.
When that first article came out that predates the Roomba acquisition, I made a LinkedIn post that said, I don't know if I want my medical insurance company knowing that I just bought a pair of pants that was 2 sizes bigger than my normal size, or that I just doubled down on some, Hershey's candies or something like that.
Fair enough. Yeah. It is interesting. And I think we're going to get into that in terms of data. Data is the most important and most valuable asset in the world today. And the more companies can acquire data and leverage that data, the more you can control. I mean, you look at Facebook, you look at Google, and now you look at Amazon, huge impact. So Jason, first question, why is Amazon buying Roomba in iRobot? What's the point behind that acquisition in your mind?
It's a great question. I kind of fumbled through this one for a while. The first thing that popped into my head, Shannon, was recent reports about activity in the EU, where Amazon is being restricted from preferencing their own products. There was even a report out recently saying that Amazon was going to pull back from a lot of its Amazon Basics products that were mediocre and not performing well. And I thought, the immediate thought as a seller, as a brand builder, as a product maker, I thought, Amazon's just decided that they're not good at making their own products anymore. So they're going to continue buying cool products like the Roomba. But then as I thought about it more and I read, I think maybe 5 or 6 articles, there was a CNBC article, a Bloomberg article, an Insider article. I started to expand my thinking to go, whoa, wait a minute. It wasn't that long ago that Amazon purchased Ring. So they got a good shot of your neighborhood and outside your home. And then shortly after that, a year later in 2019, they bought Eero. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but those are those little Wi-Fi connectors across your home. And then I was like, boy, I got a lot of Alexa devices in my house right now. This is a very interesting fit, the Roomba. What is it? What kind of data does this little vacuum cleaner that sort of walks around your house collect? And in some of the research that I was doing, I learned that it spatially maps your entire home. So here's Amazon, who's delivering stuff to the door, can't really see what's inside the home. They can hear everything that's going on in the home. They know what apps and internet you're connected to via Eero. If you've bought an Eero Wi-Fi connection, now they can literally get your blueprint for the inside of your home to know if it's a big home, it's a small home, is it a 2-story home? Do you have room for a new couch? Do you have room? Do you have room for a new dining room table that's a little bit bigger? I thought about the implications of the advertising data. It's very creepy, but as always, Shannon, there's always this dichotomy. Whenever I see these, I think, God, Amazon's getting really big. They could just drop $6 billion over the course of 2 weeks and buy up their biggest competitor in the space. Right. that's a problem. But on the other hand, it's kind of cool that I can buy a Roomba and, Amazon can target me with products that I may need that I haven't even thought about. So there's always that hypocrisy whenever I talk badly about it, Shannon.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot to unpack. Amazon has a lot of reasons for making these acquisitions. And we'll talk about the antitrust implications later. But the question really is this good? Is this good for sellers? Is this good for consumers? Is this good for the country?
Well, the question is why and what does it mean? The good news is Roomba and iRobot was not able to map my house at all because it basically would go back and forth, scare the dogs for a few minutes, and then wind its way into my office and hide under a chair. And I literally had to pull it out from under my chair twice in my office. And I thought it was supposed to like go back and forth and like map my home, and it just found a good way of getting stuck. So full disclosure, I returned my iRobot to Amazon. It can no longer map the internal of my home. But, the question and the implication is not only for sellers, but also for customers. As Amazon learns more about customers, like you said, how much data can they gather? A couple of years ago, the Amazon documentary came out that you were actually featured in. And I remember one of the interviewees, and I can't remember who it was, basically saying, how in the world did Amazon convince somebody to allow an electronic listening device into their home? Like, it's brilliant. They figured out a way. I have an Alexa. I kind of hate it. And I routinely go into the app and I delete all of our recorded messages because every time my kids, my 3 and 7-year-old, say, "Hey, Alexa," it's recording that. And so, there's privacy pieces, but that come into play. But the question is, in this world, we are so willing to trade our privacy for convenience. And I think that's something that Amazon, above all else, is willing to leverage and say, great, if you're willing for this little bit to sell me your information or give me your information, not even sell it to me, but I can actually sell you something that will give me free access to that information. I think it opens up a lot of implications about, again, what they can do from a marketing standpoint, what they can do from a privacy standpoint. I mean, I think there's some really big picture implications here.
Yeah, there really are. And, the one thing that popped into my head the minute that second huge $1 billion acquisition came out, I mean, within a span of 2 weeks, Shannon, was Amazon doesn't give two shits about what the FTC or the Justice Department have to say. I mean, this is bold, in your face. Go ahead, sue me for antitrust. Good luck. I don't think you're going to win against me. There's no hiding. There's just no hiding it. There doesn't appear to be any sense of fear or concern in the minds of Amazon overall, which I think should be a concern in itself. I mean, let's talk about this Roomba for a second. So Roomba owns 75% of the market share in the, I guess, robot
cleaning
thing. Yeah, it's part of that whole IoT Internet of Things, and Amazon really wants to seize that IoT Internet of Things within the home as a huge growth opportunity for them. And Roomba seems like a good fit, but 75% market share. So, if you look at just the robot vacuum cleaner market as a whole, that, they're the largest player in that space. Right. Amazon earlier this year announced this Astro product, which was a little robot that runs around your house and does certain things. I think it's funny that they named, I'm only guessing that they named it after the Jetsons, but the Jetsons dog Astro was actually a real flesh and blood dog. They named this robot after this Astro Jetsons flesh and blood dog, but it's been largely considered a flop.
Yeah.
Not just by me, but by, folks smarter than me in the retail space. And so you go out, you invest a lot of money to develop this thing called Astro to be the robot to get the spatial information in your home. It's a flop. No one's buying it. Maybe you look at your Eero data and see, oh, wow, there's a lot of Roombas that are attached to this Eero Wi-Fi hub, and millions upon millions of them. We should consider buying this company so that we could actually get that spatial data that we were hoping Astro could get. That's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem. I have to quote someone, Sarah Miller from the American Economic Liberty Project, said, "Buying your biggest competitor should be an antitrust violation." And I have to agree with her. Like, if you can't beat them, buy them. What company in our lifetime, Shannon, can go out and make two nearly multi-billion-dollar purchases within the span of 2 weeks without batting an eye.
Apple and Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big four, right? Apple, Facebook, they've got some current issues. Certainly Google can. But Amazon, I think that Amazon, of all of those companies, has done the best job of moving its tentacles throughout many, many different categories. Look, they're moving big into the health space because they have to feed that growth rate. They're moving big into the IoT with these products, with the Ring, the Eero, now the Roomba. They own e-commerce. There's no question that no one owns e-commerce like they do. Amazon has been able to, and we haven't even talked about AWS cloud, their cloud prowess in that space. First to market, they own the market. Gosh, it's really quite scary. And by the way, I have to give credit where credit's due. Stacy Mitchell from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I've always admired Stacy, and she's the one that gave me the idea about the Eero. She mentioned, Amazon may have used that Eero data that they're collecting from homeowners, its consumers, to inform its buying decision to purchase Roomba. And that's just playing unfair, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. If you have the data and you were given it legally, are you okay to use it? Jason, let me ask you another question, because I think, I'm curious what the implications are. Amazon sort of made a statement, or at least in the articles that I read, they're not going to cut off all the other distributors. They're going to continue selling, the Roomba wholesale. Question is, what does that look like historically with maybe other products? And what's Amazon's goal? I mean, how would that impact other sellers, either in this space or, companies that create similar products, if Amazon continues selling them wholesale to get into as many retailers as possible, or, wanting to own the market as much as possible on Amazon? How do you see that playing out based on what Amazon's done in the past?
Oh yeah, their behavior in the past has been abominable. I remember going to a warehouse back when I was a big seller, Shannon. I went to I think maybe it was an internet retailer conference or some sort of third-party logistics conference, and I saw for the first time the display for Kiva robots. Those are those little orange bots that lift up a shelf and move it to wherever the human pickers are. And this was long before Amazon had purchased the company. But I looked at those robots and I was like, man, that would be cool if we could outfit our warehouses with that technology. And then within 9 months of that trade show, Amazon had purchased the Kiva robots, had taken it over, had moved it into their warehouses, and then they cut off all of Kiva's previous customers. So I don't think it's out of the question to think that Amazon could at some point corner the market for Roomba on Amazon or throughout its stores, and one by one cut off Costco, cut off Target, cut off Walmart, all the other retailers that are getting a significant portion of their revenue from this, market leader called Roomba.
Because there's two ways to look at it. And for a smaller seller, typically your goal is to be on as many channels, right? Get as much exposure as possible. But in this case, if Roomba already owns 75% of the market and Amazon did say perhaps start cutting off other retailers, you'd say, well, Amazon's cutting out sales, but really what they're doing is saying, hey, customer, if you want this product, you have to come to Amazon, which gives Amazon the ability to then upsell, cross-sell, promote, bundle, etc., and get all those customers' data. That basically they're saying, hey, all of you Costco shoppers and Target shoppers who used to buy this product somewhere else, you now have to buy it from us, and we're going to own the market that way.
Yeah, and it also eliminates the competition. So if Amazon's the only seller of this market-leading Roomba robot vacuum and nobody else is competing with them, can they increase price? Absolutely. Sure. Can they profit take and start to pay off that $1.65 billion price tag that they paid for the company? They absolutely can, and that's bad for consumers. Now, that's not typically Amazon's style to go in there and raise prices, but they're crossing this threshold, Shannon, where they have so much power that they have the ability to do that. And remember, we talked about how Amazon's raising prices on the entire internet. That's one way to make sure that you're the lowest price if you're the only seller. I have there's no question in my mind that Amazon is considering the possibility of shutting off its other customers. That's bad for consumers. It's bad for competition. It's bad for the overall marketplace in general in the United States. And it's something to be of concern. There's one other thing that Amazon can do as they start to own all these different components of inside the home, this Internet of Things within the home, is if your Wi-Fi is being pushed through the Eero network, you've got it connected to your Alexa devices, you've got it connected to your Roomba, you plug in your microwave,
Yeah.
all your refrigerator, your stove, and you connect your thermostat and all these products. And it's basically plug and play. On one hand, it creates an incredible convenience for the consumer, right? It's really easy. However, on the other hand, if one of those 5 things you're unhappy with, it's poor quality or you don't like it, you want to take it out and replace it with a competitor's product, it's really hard to do that, especially if Amazon, who owns this walled garden that's the Amazon marketplace, and then starts to build these internal walled gardens in everyone's home. Right. Now that's messed up. That's very much a possibility. Look, I can't blame Amazon for wanting to get into consumers' homes, gather as much data and provide, sort of this wow experience for its consumers. But Shannon, this is where the government has fallen asleep at the wheel. It's the government's job to rein in companies when they knock it out of the park, like Amazon has done repeatedly, so that the next Amazon can be born, so that more competitors can be born, so that folks who are creating these products can have other outlets to sell their products rather than having to be on Amazon, which is what we tell all of our clients, right?
Let me ask,
you got to be there.
Let me ask you a question. So one of the things that we know about how Amazon operates, maybe from at least the platform side, is that Amazon is largely siloed. You have all these different departments. They don't typically talk to each other. And I guess my question is, do you see that being the case when it comes to the data that Amazon acquires? And I'll give an example. When Amazon is creating private label products, how much data is their team going over and borrowing, hey, let's look at these top competitors that sell on Amazon. Let's get all their product data. Let's get their sales data. Let's get their information so we can use that to build out our private label. I know there was, some accusations or implications about that came out in the news over the last couple of years. But really the question is, how savvy at the highest levels do you think Amazon is being in terms of gathering data and intelligence from these different aspects and tying it all together?
Yeah, well, the Amazon behaves like a sociopath, and they have for decades. And you can read story after story after story where Amazon has said one thing and done another. And I remember flying up with my brother as a big seller to talk to Amazon circa 2007, right. 2008. They wanted us to be their sourcing agent and bring in products that they would brand on their own. And we were in the room, and I was in the room with 5 buyers on the vendor central side that each and every one of them started on the marketplace side.
Right.
And, they were shoving these little pieces of paper saying, hey, can you make this product? And I'm like, wait a minute, this product is being sold and developed by a third-party seller. How do you get the sales information? And they look at each other and they go, wink, wink. Well, we've got this big brick wall between seller data and vendor data. So, and they were all laughing about it like it was something funny. Oh. And my brother and I left pissed. We're like, guys, you're out there telling small business owners you're not ripping off their data, their sales data and information. And we saw a specific example inside of a building owned by Amazon where everyone thought it was kind of funny. Yeah. I didn't think it was funny. It pissed me off. So the biggest concern that I have is really medical and healthcare. I hear this from my wife, Ann, all the time, who's in that world, HIPAA, right? The laws that protect consumer privacy. If Amazon messes with that data, they have some real legal implications. Sure. Do I think that they're going to do it? I wouldn't put it past them just based on their past behavior, Shannon. But if they do get caught, and when they do get caught, people are going to be not only fined, some of them may go to jail, because this is the law of the land, and they need to pay special attention. I don't think their culture is set up in a way to be able to, keep this consumer privacy data safe.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, if you go in and, have a test with a medical provider, and the next thing you go to Amazon.com and you have certain products that start showing up under recommended, that raises a little bit of a question mark.
Subscribe and save this Amazon Basics blood pressure medicine, right? So sure, there's some convenience there, but that's just creepy wrong. Yeah. This shouldn't be allowed to happen. I as the consumer, if I go talk to my doctor and my doctor says you should try these supplements or whatever, I'm pretty sure I can use the search bar and go find it. But it's creepy that they would have that ability, Shannon. It's just, it's not right. It's big brothery in a way that's un-American, in my opinion.
And I think, I'm gonna push back and just provide the other side of which to your point is the customer convenience side. Apple loves to do the integration, the vertical integration of, I've got my Apple TV, I've got my iPhone, I've got all these different things that work seamlessly together. And I love the fact that they work seamlessly together. It does provide convenience. And God knows Google probably has all of the information, including, Google Voice and Gmail and everything else. And again, it does provide convenience. The biggest question in my mind that it comes down to is, how do they use that information? Do they use it in my best interest, or do they use it in theirs? And that,
well, Amazon does this customer obsessed thing, right? They really talk about being customer obsessed. But if you do a little bit of a deeper dive, is it customer obsessed to allow counterfeiters and third-party sellers who are not doing things the right way to sell unsafe products on its marketplace? How is that obsessed for the consumer? Right. So their company line, the party line, if you will, that they talk about is, we're here to wow the consumer. And look, in fairness, they do that a lot.
Right.
They've done a lot of good for consumers. However, there's plenty of examples, and they seem to be coming out of the woodwork in the last couple of years, where Amazon doesn't really put its consumers' best interest at the front of the line, but their own.
Sure. Any last thoughts on the antitrust implications, not only of these acquisitions, but potential future ones? I mean, if these go through without any pushback, what else can Amazon buy that, could potentially give them all the access or information that they would want?
I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, they basically have, a blank checkbook to do whatever purchases they want to, which is problematic. But I always like to bring it back to the seller too, right, Shannon? So I was asked by a reporter, how does the acquisition of Roomba help or hurt the third-party seller or the small businesses that make Amazon what it is today? And I think that, you can sum it up by saying any acquisition or move that Amazon makes to allow it to consolidate more power is not good for the seller. If you are out there innovating in the robot vacuum space or the IoT space, this is not good news for you, right? Now, maybe if you have a robot vacuum, when and if Amazon ever starts cutting off Costco, you can go talk to them and sell those if they start cutting off Roomba. But overall, anything that consolidates power makes Amazon stickier, makes it harder for the third-party seller to leave Amazon is bad news. And so, while this could be considered exciting on the front end from the consumer perspective, I'm not sure this is great news. And I hope that there's fewer of these. And I hope that Lena Khan over at the FTC, now that she has, sort of a majority on her panel, can take some specific action to start to rein some of this in. She's got an uphill battle over there, but especially with the lobbying money that Amazon's throwing around. But I do believe that making Amazon less big, reining in its power overall is much better for sellers than the alternative.
Well, the last point I want to bring up, Jason, is, where did Amazon get all that money? You talk about being able to drop a couple $1 billion. I've got a good idea where part of it came from. And I can tell you, I spend a lot of money on Amazon.com as a consumer. As a consumer, I love Amazon.com. I shopped on there last night. I'm going to return something tomorrow. I mean, the ease, the convenience is really, really incredible. But I can tell you, as a seller, as I'm also an active seller on Amazon, that I make Amazon way more money, probably by
than you make yourself
10x of the amount of money I spend as a consumer in inbound shipping, FBA pick and pack fees, in advertising, in long-term storage, in referral fees. I mean, so we're probably talking about 25 times the amount that I spend on Amazon. Amazon is making off of me as the seller, and that is cash in their pocket. Yes, there's overhead that they've got to, pay for these different services and fulfillment centers and stuff, but the margin is getting smaller. It is getting more competitive. And I think that's another big question mark that you have to ask yourself. If Amazon has so much money to go out and do all these huge acquisitions, are they really justified in raising all of our FBA fees and pick and pack fees? And I mean, that's a legitimate question, I think, that I feel has some merit to it.
Yeah, it absolutely has. And one of the things that Andy Jassy said recently really pissed me off. He said, well, when asked by a reporter, I think it may have been Annie Palmer, why are you adding a fuel surcharge to sellers? And he said, well, we can't just keep eating costs. But that's exactly what he has made sellers do over the last 10 years.
Right.
In the good old days, I paid Amazon 15% of the sale, right? And then they introduced FBA. You have to be an FBA in order to maximize your revenue. So add another 12 to 15 points. That's 30 points. And then they introduced advertising without lowering that seller fee.
Yeah.
On average, you've got to spend 15 cents of every dollar that you make on advertising. That's 45% of every dollar sold going right into Amazon's pockets. Now, look, they've done a lot of investment. They've got a lot of expenses. Those FBA center expenses are real. But to your point, Shannon, you as a seller, Amazon's pocketing 45 to 50 cents on the dollar, and you're probably pocketing 10, 15 if you're lucky. So screw you, Andy Jassy, for saying you can't keep raising costs and expecting the third-party small business owners to eat it. I think you should eat some more, and you should reduce that seller fee, especially as the cost per click keeps going up on your advertising. You can't keep being greedy and pulling a commission revenue stream and an ad revenue stream at the rate that you're doing right now. I don't think it's sustainable.
Jason, any last thoughts as we wrap up? Obviously, a sort of powerful and passionate topic, but again, I kind of want to bring it back to what would you say to consumers? What would you say to sellers? And what would you say to Amazon?
Oh, yeah. Well, first, let's start with consumers. Do your homework. Make sure that you're comfortable with Amazon having a blueprint to your home when you start to buy these products. There are alternatives out there, and just ask yourself the question: is it a good thing for you and your family to have Amazon permeate through all of your daily life surrounding your home? That's what I would say to consumers. And then secondly, and look, I have to own some of my own hypocrisy, Shannon. I couldn't make the trip to Costco to buy batteries this week because, my two girls and my family kept me too busy, couldn't make the trip. So what did I do? I pulled up my Prime app and I bought AA and AAA batteries. They were delivered the next day. So look, there's this dichotomy in my thinking every time I think about this from the consumer's perspective. I'm a power user of Prime. The Prime app, my wife is, my family is. It has provided tremendous convenience, but there is a limit to what I will allow them to do. And it's not much farther that I'll go before I start looking for alternatives. I've already started looking for alternatives to purchase our products. So that's the consumer's perspective. From the seller's perspective, what can I say but just commiserate? I empathize with the sellers that are out there continually and constantly, and I'm always fighting on behalf of the seller. And I'll transition this. It is much more difficult today to survive and thrive on the Amazon channel than it ever has before. They're taking a bigger share, as we outlined, to your point, Shannon. And I think, if I was speaking to Amazon, I would say, remember why you are who you are today. The Amazon seller has put more profit dollars into the pocket of Amazon to reinvest in all these other sales channels than any other channel, including AWS. Disagree with me if you want, but it is a fact. The Amazon third-party seller has been funding that growth with Amazon. It would not be what it is today. So, Andy, remember that. The next time you speak publicly, and you're concerned about you guys eating costs, why don't you think about the seller first? Let's think about what kind of cost you're forcing down the throats of the seller, and they need relief in order to continue to make Amazon what it is today.
Jason, last question. If there are sellers who are concerned about some of these antitrust implications, are there actions that they can take within their realm of control to write Congress representatives or, sign online pledges? What are things that they can do from a proactive standpoint to basically voice their opinion and concern?
Yeah, they absolutely can. And look, I referenced two really smart people, Sarah Miller from the American Economic Liberties Project and Stacy Mitchell from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. You can sign up for their newsletters. You can get involved with them. If you have a story that you think would be impactful to their message of trying to rein in the power of big tech, then share it with those two. Certainly, you can reach out to your local Congress people, and you as a seller may think, oh, my local congressman or woman doesn't want to hear from me. That's not true. We do that all the time. I reach out to local Congress members, your senators, your House of Representatives, your local leaders, state attorney general's office. Share your stories with them. Let them know how changes that Amazon and big tech make impact your small business, how it affects your payroll, how it affects your cost of business, and when it threatens your business. So there's a lot of ways, Shannon, really that sellers can get involved. And those are, frankly, those are just a few.
Yeah. Jason, great episode. Thanks for obviously jumping on and taking the time to share. Again, I think there's a lot of great things about Amazon. I use a lot of Amazon services, but there's also some very scary implications. There are some things that they are doing now that don't seem justified, in regards to sellers. And there's some things that they're doing that are a little on the dodgy side when it comes to consumers. So I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts.
Yeah, no question. Look, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's something that happens when these companies reach into the $1 trillion stratosphere where, the conscience gets a little bit weaker and the hunger for power gets a little bit stronger. So look, if you're an Amazon seller or a brand looking to survive and thrive against this huge beast called Amazon that owns more than half of the online market share in our country, you can reach out to us at the Day 2 Podcast. That's day, the number 2, podcast.com. And if you've gained value from listening to this podcast, please share it with a friend. Thanks again. Happy selling. And thanks for thinking about this topic at the 40,000 foot view.